Stand as one for the Alliance!
Hello everyone, welcome to Witchcat Presents. Today we're gonna do a build called the Melee Cleric. Cleric is one of my favorite classes in D&D. This is because they are super versatile and you can flavor them in whatever way you want. You can do the poster child for the support classes, focusing on buff and healing spells. Or you can do it the dark way, focusing on necromancy spells, draining the life of your enemies. But by far and beyond, my favorite way to play this class is to build a melee cleric. This build won't be specific to a particular domain. There's a bunch of subclasses that you can do this build with, and it will work just fine with any of them. The requirements I need for the subclass is that you have access to the Divine Strike feature and the Heavy Armor Proficiency. The Armor Proficiency is because I'm not willing to spend a feature to get Heavy Armor, and I'm not comfortable sending a cleric with low AC into the front lines. The subclasses that give you both of these features are the Forge, Life, Nature, Order, Tempest, Twilight, and War Domain. So any of those will work just fine with this build. Okay guys, so let's go over our initial stats here for this build. We're gonna put 15 both in Constitution and Wisdom. We're gonna need a 14 in Intelligence, and I'm gonna put 10 in Charisma, but you can put it either on Charisma, Strength, or Dexterity, doesn't matter. For our race, we're gonna go with the Vahada Elf from Kaladesh. For the more experienced players, you already know why I'm choosing this. The Vahada Elf has a unique ability that you can start the game with one cantrip from the Druid spell list. In the cantrip I'm choosing, it's none other than the famous Shillelagh. This cantrip allows us to imbue a club or a quarterstaff with nature's power. The weapon will deal a 1d8 magical bludgeoning damage, and you can use our wisdom modifier for the attack and damage rolls. For this build, we're gonna go with two classes, the Cleric and the Wizard. For the first 5 levels of Cleric, this is the standard Cleric build. Make sure to get Bless, Shield of Faith, Spiritual Weapon, Spirit Guardians, and for our feat, we're gonna go of course with Warcaster. The only difference so far is that our Cleric can hit using his Wisdom instead of Strength or Dexterity. Bless is our favorite spell for the low levels here. It buffs you and your allies, give you guys a d4 buff on the attack rolls and saving throws. Another option for the low levels is to grab Shield of Faith so you can go melee with a +2 in your AC. Spiritual Weapon, it's a bonus action to cast, no concentration required. You can do an attack with a bonus action. Your attacks deals 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier, and you can hit with your Wisdom. So now we can do 2 attacks per turn, both using our Wisdom. At level 5 we'll get a big hit here. Spirit Guardians, this spell deals 1d8 per spell level you use to cast, either necrotic or radiant damage. In addition, the area affected by the spell is considered a difficult terrain. so enemies will have a difficult time leaving this spell. This is so cool, it makes my soul spin. If you guys need more information on this, there's a really good video by Treantmonk that I'm gonna put a link in the description. For our feat at level 4, we can choose no other than Warcaster. Warcaster is your standard feat to grab with most casters. It will give us advantage on our saving throws, and since we are in the front lines, we're gonna get hit a lot and we're gonna make a lot of saving throws. So we wanna keep our spells up as much as possible. In addition, we can perform somatic components of spells even if you are wielding a shield and a weapon. Okay guys, but I promised a melee cleric, and so far there's not a lot different from most standard clerics. So now we're gonna start cooking here, because we're gonna grab 2 levels in wizard. For spells, make sure to grab the booming blade cantrip. You can also grab the green pen blade, but the damage is a little bit lower. It's very important to grab for your first level spells: shield, find familiar, and absorb elements. All of those spells are really great at first level and are great on 20th level. This makes our cleric defensively really strong. So for our subclass, we're gonna choose War Magic, and the reason for War Magic is because we get Arcane Deflection and Tactical Wit. Arcane Deflection reads: at 2nd level, you have learned to weave your magic to fortify yourself against harm. When you are hit with an attack or fail a saving throw, you can use a reaction and gain +2 bonus to your AC against the attack, or a +4 bonus to that saving throw. When you use this feature, you can't cast spells other than cantrip until the end of your next turn. This is great, we already have Warcaster, and now we can have an additional +4 to the saving throw. So this is a +7 roll with advantage. So right now, I'm not really concerned about keeping up our concentration. If we do not want to use this, we can always just cast shield and get a +5 AC, potentially avoid the damage entirely. So right now, our cleric is probably one of the toughest characters on the party's front line. Tactical Wit, it's also good. It gives us a bonus to our initiative roll equal to our intelligence modifier. So let's go over the most important spells we took from wizard. We took Booming Blade. This will scale our damage, and since we are only hitting once with our actual melee weapon, our club or our quarterstaff, this will scale our damage. In addition, it also gives us a chance to get a secondary damage to the target if they move. We can also choose the Green Flame Blade cantrip, which works very similar, but instead you get to hit a different target. But we are going for a single target damage here. Again, the shield spell will give us a +5 bonus to our AC, and we can use this as a reaction. The Find Familiar spell is the stellar pick here. Since we are only attacking once with our melee weapon, our familiar can grant us advantage by performing the help action. So right now we do 1 hit with advantage plus a 2nd hit with spiritual weapon. All of this on top of the amazing damage the Spirit Guardian is providing us. Absorb Elements, it's also really good. It's another defensive spell, and since we are in the front line, you never know when you are gonna be hit by a fireball, so this is also really good to have in your pocket. So now that we took most of the spells we need to stay in the front line, we can go back to Cleric, and we're gonna stay Cleric for the rest of our careers. The important thing to keep in mind here, when we reach level 10, we're gonna be able to pick another feat, and this time we're gonna go with Elven Accuracy. In addition, we're gonna have Divine Strike, and then our build will be complete. Basically, this build relies on the fact that we're gonna use Booming Blade with the Divine Strike feature from the Cleric class. Basically, we're gonna have a cantrip that scales twice as fast as it usually does. Since we're dealing only one big strike every turn, and with Elven Accuracy, we're gonna get to the point that it basically hits every single time. Okay guys, let's go over our combat tactics. First of all, we're gonna use Shillelagh for our hits, obviously. In addition, I'm gonna assume that we have Shillelagh up before combat because I do not want to spend a bonus action using the cantrip, and since we can do it all the time, I'm just gonna assume that you are casting it whenever you are not in combat. We're gonna use our highest spell slots for Spirit Guardians whenever we have them available, and then we're gonna use the remaining of our spell slots to cast Spiritual Weapon. Keep in mind that for the DPR calculation here, I always assume that we're gonna have 4 combats per day with 1 short rest in between. This means that it's not every combat that we're gonna have our highest spell slots available to cast Spiritual Guardians. For example, at level 5, we would only be able to cast Spiritual Guardians twice per day, and then we're gonna use Spiritual Weapon on the remaining 2 combats. As we move up in levels, we're gonna have higher spell slots to cast Spiritual Guardians, but even at level 20, you will have 1 slot of 9 level, 1 slot of 8 level, and so on and so forth. So we are always using our 4 highest spell slots to cast Spiritual Guardians whenever the spell slots is level 3 or higher, and then we're gonna use the remaining slots to cast Spiritual Weapon. On this first graph, I'm assuming we're gonna hit an average of 1 creature with our Spirit Guardians. You can see the Warlock baseline, above you can see my Champion Fighter Elite baseline, and above that you can see our Cleric. We start beating the Warlock baseline around level 6 because it's the level that we get our Booming Blade, and before that we do not have a really good way to do damage in melee. Around level 10, when we get our Divine Strike, we will surpass the Elite baseline and we're gonna stay above that baseline for the rest of our careers. But if we consider we're gonna hit 2 creatures with our spell, then the situation is very different. We can surpass the Warlock baseline by level 6 and the Elite baseline by level 7, and we stay shoulders above both of them for the rest of our careers. This is the power of the Cleric. It can deliver good damage against a single target and amazing damage on multiple targets. This is it for the build today, guys. Since you watched the video until this point, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe, and activate the notification bell for some awesome videos. Bye!